Do you think acrylic paint is popular? Don't get me wrong, I like acrylic paint. But how many lines can you have? Well, 2 more. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Ammo by Meg's brand new Atom paint line, as well as their IONIC paints. Are these different compared to the others, or are they just another acrylic paint for us to buy? Well, let's find out. Let's begin. So, I've grabbed 2 colors from each line, a black and a yellow. Go Bruins. And I've also got the pamphlets for each paint line, because if you need instructions on how to get through the painting process, check out the enclosed instruction book. Alright, so here's IONIC. Here's how they describe the paint that they're so proud of. High covering power, everybody says that. Highly saturated colors, everybody says that. Self-moisturizing paint, that's something I haven't heard before. Just sounds like a retarder. Self-leveling, everyone says that. Perfect for any technique, okay. Smart lid, doesn't look like Einstein to me. Non-toxic and odorless, everybody says that. And large quantity and high quality. So yeah, they are larger bottles than the usual 10 to 17 milliliter. A whopping 3 milliliters more. So doesn't sound special to me so far. And now this is Atom. Touch dry in 10 minutes. Everybody says that. Fully cured in 24 hours. Easy application by both brush and airbrush. Self-leveling. Odorless. Water-based and non-toxic. Behaves like a lacquer paint. Well, that's a bold claim. I'll be testing that out. And again, a 20 milliliter container. So if you can tell by my enthusiasm, I think this is going to be real different from anything we've ever had before. Okay, calm down. Alright, well, let's be fair. Let's give it its fair shake and see how it turns out. First test subject up is Atom. And I'm going to start by brushing them on with these disposable brushes. And I will be using this throwaway plastic crater base as a demonstration. One thing of note that the pamphlets neglected to mention was that both of these paints come with mixing balls. So we're gonna shake this up. I can barely hear the mixing balls in there. They must be very tiny. Now, I know I've been very skeptical about these paints before I've tried them, but I gotta be lenient for this particular color, as yellow is notoriously bad to paint on no matter what the paint is, acrylic, enamel, lacquer. So, got some on my palette. Let's see how this goes. It is quite vibrant, I'll say that. Yeah, there are some brush marks, but like I said, that is to be expected with any type of yellow. Now let's try the satin black. There's never any issue with painting on black. Yeah, that went on pretty good. So as you can see, the yellow, like I mentioned before, didn't go on great, but that's just how yellow is. Probably 2, maybe a 3rd coat would cover that completely. And no issues with the black. Okay, now let's see how these airbrush. So starting with the yellow, I made a mixture of about 50-50 of yellow and their corresponding thinner. And I noticed that it's got a smell similar to Tamiya's. It's that alcohol-like smell. So that may actually be a good sign in terms of the paint's durability. Also, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, this whole base is not primed. This is just paint going straight on. I'm spraying this at about 15 psi. Well, that's sprayed on pretty good. Because the paint is so thin through the airbrush and the base is a dark gray, it makes the yellow look more like a faded greenish yellow. But just more coats would make it look more like this. Alright, on to black. Yeah, that one sprayed on pretty good. Well, so far this paint has been, well, it's at least been going on pretty good. We'll see later on the true extent of its glory. But yeah, I would say coverage is pretty good. Leveling's pretty good too. But one complaint I do have. Now I don't know if Ionic and Atom are the exact same in terms of the design of the lid, but this lid sure isn't smart. It's actually one of the least good lids, paint lids I've come across. See, when you try to just let it flow out, it falls down to the side, and if you force it, then it just does that, you get multiple drops out, and it throws off your count when you're trying to airbrush. So yeah, let's hope that IONIC's smart lid is all it cracks itself up to be. While we're waiting for Atom to dry, I am going to move on to IONIC now, starting with yellow. One thing I immediately noticed is that the IONIC paint, if you can see, looked slightly thicker than Atom's. So that might require more thinning when I get to airbrushing. And this one doesn't have the alcohol smell, so this is probably more of a pure acrylic. The shade of this yellow has a bit more orange in it than the Atom one. Also, this one doesn't seem to brush on as well. Not that the Atom one brushed on that well either. Okay, that's IONIC's yellow. Now we'll move on to black. Again, the black brushes on better. So I'm not really noticing much of a difference between the two other than the smell. And also the lids, exactly the same, so not smart. Okay, so that's how they brush on. Now let's move on to how they airbrush. So I've got the yellow mixed and ready to go. Now, because I noticed that the IONIC paint seemed a little thicker, I added a bit more thinner, about 60-40. So let's see how this one goes. Again, it's got that green hue over gray plastic. Again, more coats would make that closer to this, as well as having a white primer underneath. But again, it behaves very similar to Atom. Here is black. Okay, so my verdict so far on how it airbrushes, both of them, it's pretty good. It didn't seem to clog the airbrush at all or cause any spattering. However, this was a very short burst of paint. I would be curious to see how it holds up after, let's say, 3 to 5 minutes of continuous spraying. If it starts drying out and clogging the nozzle. But that's for another time. So, well, let me turn this off. So now all that's left is to give these paints some time to dry. The pamphlet does say 10 minutes till touch dry and a day till fully dried. So I don't have a day, so I'll give this maybe an hour or two, and then we'll test out its durability. So a few hours later, I have given everything some time to dry. And so in terms of leveling out over time, I'd say it's pretty good. For coverage, this is for Adam to start, by the way. Coverage for the black was quite good. The yellow, I've said it 100 times this video, yellow, no matter what brand you're using, just doesn't paint on that well. So considering that, it fared okay. As for Ionic, I would say it's slightly underneath Adam. Like, it's almost identical, but I think Adam performed a little better. Alright, so now we're going to test its durability. Now, I am aware this is acrylic paint, and I did not prime anything on this base here. I'm going to try the masking tape method, and if it peels, I'm not going to be angry because I honestly expect it to peel. Oh, okay, let's see. That's actually quite durable. Let's see the brush painted portion. Wow, it's actually holding up. Okay, there's a little spot on this one. This part actually impressed me. An acrylic paint with no primer underneath it, and it, for the most part, withstood masking tape. Alright, let's see how it fares with being sanded now. Okay, so yeah, it can't be sanded. I assume it'll be the same for everything else here. Yeah, that one started peeling. That too. Okay, so yeah, it can't be sanded, which I honestly expected. Alright, so Adam impressed with his durability. Let's see how Ionic fares. Again, it's holding up pretty well. So far, Ionic is proving to be just as durable. Well, would you look at that? I didn't even leave this to dry for the recommended full day, and both these paints seem to withstand very well to masking tape even without primer. In conclusion, don't you just hate having to eat your own words? I may have been too harsh on these paints. Now that I've tried them for myself, I'm quite astonished, really. Well, let's not get too carried away. The smart lids, I still think they suck compared to Vallejo or AK. However, I was impressed by the durability. The color selection is very good, and it's nice to have double the paint capacity of something like Tamiya or Mr. Color. So, would I recommend it? Yeah, I think so. So if you want to try these out for yourself, you can purchase the individual paints or the paint sets at Sunward Hobbies in store or online. So thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on our socials, and until the next one, adios.